My Uncle Raymond was a lighthouse keeper, not in the romanticized, sweeping ocean view kind of way, but in the forgotten corners of the northeast coast, where weather tears through stone and the sea sounds like it's always breathing. The place he worked was called Caldwell's Wain, a crumbling iron tower about 8 miles off the coast of Rhode Island. It had been decommissioned decades ago, but was still manned for emergency transmissions and preservation purposes. Ray volunteered there for years, said it gave him peace. Said it was the only place where the static in his mind went quiet. I didn't understand what he meant until he vanished. It happened in January 2019. The off-season, fewer boats, less visibility. He had a week-long solo rotation while the primary keeper was on medical leave. My family didn't think much of it. He'd done these stints for over 15 years without incident. The last time we heard from him was on a Monday night. He sent a short text to my dad that read, "Made it, winds wild, beacon steady, see you Sunday." Simple, typical, nothing alarming, but by Wednesday there was radio silence. No calls, no texts, no weather logs. By Thursday, the Preservation Society sent out a check-in crew by boat. What they found didn't make the news. It didn't hit Reddit. It was quietly logged and then forgotten. But I got access to his personal notebook, the last one he ever used. He always wrote in physical journals, old habit, and what I read in those final entries changed the way I look at isolation and at lighthouses forever. Day 1, January 7th. Winds rougher than forecasted. Got the generator going. Everything looks fine. Fog's rolling in early. Feels like it's pressing against the glass. Windows still hold. Feels different this time, like the tower's breathing slower than me. Day 2, January 8th. Did a full rotation. South stair creaks louder than I remember, might tighten the bolts. Beacon's healthy. Had some static interference on channel 7 like someone humming underwater. Might be the weather, the fog hasn't left, it's thicker now. Can't see more than 10 feet off the platform. No birds, no waves, just white. He'd always made poetic entries, never alarming. But on day 3, the tone shifted. Day 3, January 9th. Woke at 3:17 a.m. Something was moving upstairs, heavy, like boots scraping metal. I thought I was dreaming, but when I sat up, the beacon's light pattern had stopped. I didn't even hear the motor. Climbed to the top, fog still thick. Found the beacon lens covered in something, looked like seaweed but dry. It crackled when I touched it, smelled like burnt salt and copper. No breach in the structure. I cleaned it off, restarted the motor. No clue how that got in. Not sure I'm alone. That line, not sure I'm alone, it hit me in the gut when I read it. He never mentioned that kind of unease before. Day 4, January 10th. The fog's inside now. I don't know how else to explain it. I locked the hatch to the observation room last night. I know I did, but I woke up with the foghorn blaring even though I hadn't activated it. The controls were cold. I hadn't been up there. The stairs had wet footprints going upward, bare. Human-sized. They stopped at the 3rd landing. I followed them. They were gone by the time I reached the top. I keep smelling iron, like blood. I've gone over these pages more times than I can count. He was meticulous, not prone to exaggeration. What's more chilling is what he wrote next. Day 5, January 11th. I heard tapping inside the tower walls last night. Not from the wind, not from rats. Rhythmic, 3 taps, then silence. Then 3 more, Morse. No pattern I know. I responded by tapping the stair railing once. Silence. Then 3 more taps, then 2, then 1, then nothing. I'm not sleeping, haven't eaten much, but I know what I'm hearing. I know I'm not alone. The beacon was off again this morning. This time the bulb wasn't out, it was gone, just missing. Socket cold. The door to the beacon room was open, unlatched. The air was warmer inside than outside. Impossible, the fog's still here. It hasn't moved for 3 days. He stopped writing in full sentences after that. Day 6, January 12th. It's here, not a person, not an animal in the walls, in the metal. I hear breathing when I press my ear to the floor. Saw something in the reflection on the oil drum, not me, taller, no face, long limbs. It crawled backward. My voice doesn't echo anymore. The fog swallowed the sound. I screamed and nothing came out. The rest of the notebook was scribbles and half-thoughts, words like, "He watches from behind the glass. It lives in the signal. I unplugged the radio, but it still talks. The sea has eyes." The final page only had one sentence, carved deep into the paper with what looked like a knife. "Don't let the fog in." When the check-in crew arrived on Friday morning, the beacon was off. The lighthouse was dark. They found no sign of struggle, no sign of a body. My uncle's gear was still there, boots by the bed, jacket by the chair, his radio still clipped to the wall. His sat phone hadn't been used since Monday. The emergency flare was untouched. The only clue was a trail of wet footprints leading from the generator room to the spiral staircase barefoot. Only one set. They ended at the top of the tower, where the lens had been shattered from the inside. My uncle's notebook was found under his cot. The last page had been smeared with salt, and in the margins, written in shaking ink, was a line I still can't shake. "It's not the isolation that kills you. It's what comes to keep you company." This second story came from a man named Dennis Verla, a retired ship engineer who emailed me after hearing about my uncle's disappearance. He said he had his own reasons for avoiding lighthouses, and when I read his message, I understood why. Dennis had been hired in the spring of 2004 to do an electrical overhaul of an old lighthouse off the coast of Newfoundland, a squat, wind-battered place called Crosswind's Hollow. It had long been converted into an unmanned navigation marker, but the regional marine authority wanted to upgrade it to solar. Because the location was so remote, almost 15 nautical miles from shore, they paid Dennis a week's rate to camp out and complete the job alone. What follows is his story as he relayed it to me. It was the only job he never finished. I arrived on April 11th, 2004. Foggy, colder than expected, wind like knives, but the place was intact. The tower was only about 40 feet tall, attached to a small stone keeper's quarters long since gutted. The kind of place you could tell had been empty a long time, the paint peeled off like sunburned skin, rust down every seam and bird bones on the windowsills. He spent the first 2 days replacing old junctions and rerouting some cabling. There was no power source aside from a backup gas generator which he didn't need, but he noted something strange right away. The beacon upstairs had power. It was already on, turning slow, dim but operational. That shouldn't have been possible. There were no batteries installed, no solar panels. The power system hadn't been active for years. At first, I thought maybe someone had done a partial install before me and forgot to report it, but there was no trace of equipment. I opened the control box and found nothing inside. The wires weren't connected to anything. That night, Dennis heard movement inside the lighthouse, not from above, but from below. The base of the tower had a sealed trapdoor leading to a narrow crawl space that had been flooded and abandoned for decades. When he first arrived, the door had been rusted shut. Now it was ajar. I didn't open it that night. I closed it and pushed a metal toolbox over the top, but even with the door closed, I swear I heard breathing under the floor. Long, dragging exhales, like someone trying to stay quiet under a blanket, the kind of sound you don't forget. By the third day, Dennis was ready to finish the rewiring. But that morning, the tools he'd left in the generator shed were gone. Not all of them, just a few specific items. His wire cutters, his flashlight, and his wrench. He searched the entire building. No sign of entry, doors still latched. He climbed to the top of the tower to reset the fuse panel, and that's when he noticed something new. Someone had left a small, perfectly folded gray shirt beside the beacon. It was soaked through with seawater. It hadn't been there the day before. It was a child's shirt, maybe size 6 or 7, the kind with 2 little buttons at the collar. I didn't touch it. I didn't want to. The moment I saw it, the beacon light sputtered and turned off as if something didn't want me to see it clearly. Dennis spent the rest of the day sitting in the storage room on the second floor with his back to the wall. He didn't sleep. He said the air smelled like mold and iron and something sweet, the scent of decay mixed with brine. He heard whispers below the floor again, but this time it wasn't breathing. It was a voice. I couldn't make out the words, just a kind of low murmur. It rose and fell like someone speaking underwater. I finally went downstairs and opened the trapdoor to shine a light inside. The crawl space was dry, too dry. It looked like someone had been living in there. There were scratch marks on the brick, long and curved like fingers. In the corner, I saw the rest of the shirt, shredded and buried in a pile of old burlap. He slammed the door shut and bolted it with a crowbar. That night, the beacon came back on, but it no longer rotated. Instead, it pointed directly into the second-floor storage window where Dennis was sleeping. The beam didn't move. It didn't sweep. It just stared. The light shouldn't have been on. There was no power, no connection, no reason. I tried pulling the fuse again, nothing. I tried disconnecting the wires entirely, nothing. The moment I stepped away from the panel, the light flared back on. And when I looked out the window, I swear I saw someone standing on the edge of the platform below. Dennis never opened the door to confirm. He stayed locked in the storage room until morning. When the rescue boat came for pickup on the 5th day, 2 days earlier than planned, they found Dennis already packed, sitting at the dock with his bag and clipboard, his eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't speak to the crew. He didn't report what had happened. He didn't even charge for the full job. But before he left, he took one photograph, the inside of the crawl space. And in that photo, which he emailed me along with his story, was a single soaking footprint. Small, child-sized, pressed into the dirt, bare. Dennis wrote only one final line in his email, before signing off for good. There's something under that lighthouse. It was never meant to come up again, but it's been waiting, and I think it found a way through the wires. The third and final story comes from a woman named Kelly Marsh. She's a former coastal weather technician who worked on several rotating contracts with the NOAA between 1989 and 2001. Most of her work involved collecting temperature data and calibrating atmospheric sensors. She's rational, highly trained, and not at all the kind of person you'd expect to get spooked by an old building. But when she was assigned a 2-week solo rotation at the Griffin Rock Lighthouse, everything changed. This was back in 1991. Griffin Rock was a black and white stone tower sitting off the southern Oregon coast, positioned near a dangerous reef line that had claimed dozens of ships over the last century. It had been decommissioned after automation in the 70s, but remained accessible for occasional scientific surveys due to its elevation and exposure. The job was basic: 2 weeks of data logging, 2 radio check-ins daily, and then pickup by airboat on the 15th. Kelly never made it to the 15th. The report filed at the time listed her status as missing, presumed swept into the sea during a storm. But no major weather events were recorded that week. The final radio transmission was calm and routine. No distress signal, no anomalies. It wasn't until 2013 that a small group of Lighthouse historians gained access to declassified internal NOAA documents, including a scanned field journal labeled KM91 Griffin Site Log. Entries, days 111. These were the last known writings of Kelly Marsh. Day 1, Sep 3, 1991. Touchdown successful, chopper circled twice. Visibility clear, tower still intact, upper platform rusted but stable, entry door warped, used crowbar to breach. No vermin inside, just dust, mold, and old furniture. Smells like wet pennies. Will begin sensor checks tomorrow. The first few entries were uneventful. Her logs showed normal temperatures, calm weather, and a steady barometric pressure. But by day 4, things began to change. Day 4, Sep 6. Power glitch in uplink terminal. Woke to system rebooting at 3:12 a.m. Beacon stuttered twice. Came back online. No storm, no wind, just complete silence. Outside looks flat. Ocean is too still. No waves. I watched for an hour. Not a single crest. That's not right. Day 5, Sep 7. Someone been inside. Tools on lower stairwell moved. Radio was unplugged. Thought maybe I did it, but then I noticed the entry logs I wrote were missing from the clipboard. They were torn out. Only pages from days 1-3 gone. Strange draft in Beacon Room this morning. No windows open, no cracks. Still can't locate source of breeze. She made an audio log on day 6. A copy of the recording was found in the NOAA archive, labeled only. Voice record 6, disturbance. In it she whispers, "I think I saw someone on the platform last night. Tall, thin, didn't move when the beacon hit him, just stood there. Then gone. Left the door unlocked again. I keep locking it, but it won't stay shut. Something in here with me." Day 7, Sep 8. Staircase feels wrong, like it's not connected to the rest of the tower. Took 5 minutes to climb a 30-second flight. Steps feel longer, like stretching. Hall light flickers when I walk past. Shadows don't match movement. Heard tapping inside my room walls last night. Morse pattern. Letters, AREYOUALONE. Kelly stopped writing log entries on day 8. The pages are blank from there on. But someone else kept writing. Day 9, unknown handwriting. She won't leave, she won't listen. She keeps waking up, she should be quiet, she should be gone, the door is open now. That entry was scribbled violently across the journal in thick, angular lettering. No signature, no explanation. It wasn't her handwriting. NOAA analysts confirmed that. The final pages of the log contained drawings. Sketches of the interior of the tower, increasingly distorted. First, the beacon, then the stairwell, then the walls with hands reaching out of them. One drawing showed the observation window, and outside of it, a human face pressed against the glass from the outside, even though that window was 40 feet above sea level. When they sent a recovery team to check the site, the place looked untouched. No blood, no damage. Kelly's sleeping cot was still made. Her backup sat phone was still charging. Her shoes were left by the top landing. But she was gone. The most disturbing detail came from one of the recovery divers who had to check the surrounding rocks and shoreline. According to his unofficial testimony, which was later redacted, he found something wedged deep between two rocks. A weatherproof notebook identical to Kelly's, but filled entirely with backwards writing, every page repeating the same phrase over and over. She stayed too long. To this day, Griffin Rock remains closed to the public. There are no active permits to visit or restore it, and any FOIA requests sent to NOAA about Kelly's disappearance return the same response. Records not available at this time. The scariest part: that lighthouse is still listed as active. The beacon still shines, but no one knows who's maintaining it. Some nights, fishermen passing by say they see a woman standing up there at the rail, staring into the sea. They say she looks sad, but also like she's waiting. This final story comes from a man named Thomas Heller, a marine cartographer from Oslo, Norway, who had spent over 2 decades mapping coastlines and underwater terrain for Scandinavian nautical charts. His job was simple: confirm the locations of old structures and update any missing or altered data. In 2019, he was assigned to a routine verification sweep along the Svalbard archipelago, a remote and ice-fringed stretch of the Norwegian Sea. His goal was to cross-check coordinates listed in outdated 1970s maps, many of which included obsolete markers like decommissioned towers or sunken buoys. One such coordinate, however, had no formal listing at all. Lat. 78.2231 N. Long. 14.1436 E. There was no official record of a lighthouse or beacon there, but the old Soviet-era charts marked it cryptically with a single word: Kra Elyeri, the keeper. Tamaz thought it was a mistake, a leftover Soviet ghost entry, but he made a note to fly over the location during a private charter flight between islands. What he saw would change his life forever. It shouldn't have been there. A massive black stone tower rising straight out of a sheer cliff, coated in ice like armor. There were no docks, no access roads, no windows except a single slit at the top. But there was light. A dull, red glow from inside the beacon, like coal behind glass. It pulsed once every 6 seconds, but not in rhythm, more like breathing. He took photos, videos, but when he returned home and tried to open the files, they were all corrupted. Not blurred, not missing. Corrupted in the exact same way. Each one overwritten with a silent, 8-second clip of static followed by a woman's voice whispering in Norwegian. Jeg venter, I'm waiting. Tamaz tried to report what he'd seen. He filed requests with the Norwegian Hydrographic Service. He sent inquiries to Russian maritime authorities in case it had been a Cold War installation. Every reply came back the same: there is no structure at those coordinates. But the nightmares started soon after. I dreamed I was standing at the base of that tower barefoot in the snow. The wind was gone. The sky was gone, just white, stretching in all directions, and above me the tower didn't rise, it descended. It sank into the earth like a reverse candle, and from deep within I could hear knocking, not on a door, on a coffin lid. Tamaz returned once, against every warning, every instinct. In late 2020, he chartered a small icebreaker and traveled back to the coordinates. It was a mistake. He told his brother later that it felt like he was sailing toward a place that had never forgiven humanity. As they approached the location, the sea grew eerily calm. No birds, no ice, just flat, motionless water like dark oil. And then they saw it. But this time, the lighthouse wasn't empty. There was someone standing at the top, not moving, just standing there silhouetted in that red beacon glow. I tried to zoom in with my binoculars. What I saw I still can't explain. The face, it looked like mine. It was mine, only older, decaying, staring down with this expression of absolute sorrow, like it pitied me. The crew refused to go ashore. They turned the boat around after only 5 minutes near the base of the cliff. Tamaz never spoke to them again. 3 days later, he woke in the middle of the night to a sound echoing through his apartment. 3 knocks against the inside of his bedroom wall. Not from the hallway, from inside the wall. He moved within a week, changed jobs, left Oslo entirely. But before he left, he sent me something, a manila envelope with 2 items. One was a printed page of coordinates, the same location as before. The second was a photograph. It wasn't corrupted. It wasn't blurry. It showed the base of the tower, and etched into the stone just above the ice line was a carving of a name. Enverla, the same last name as the man from Story 2. But that story took place in Newfoundland. This lighthouse was in Norway. So what does that mean? Are they connected? Is there one lighthouse that moves, or many that share something deeper? A presence, a watcher, a prisoner. I don't know. I don't think anyone does. But every one of these stories ends the same way. With someone missing, or changed, or warning us not to go back. And yet every year more reports surface, more disappearances, more sightings of lights where no tower should exist. So the next time you're near the coast on a foggy night, and you see a light flickering in the distance, don't go toward it. Don't even look too long. Because if you do, you might hear a voice whisper from behind the stone walls of your mind. I've been waiting.